Morning, I'm Alec. Welcome back to Whitewell Comics. This video is my contest submission entry for Regie Simmons 1,000 sub giveaway. First of all, I want to say up front that I wouldn't do a giveaway video for a channel that I didn't support. Regie's channel is one of my favorites. He actually was the first YouTuber I reached out to. I said I've talked about this before, but he was the first YouTuber I reached out to who really encouraged me to join in and start my own channel. So I respect Reggie a lot. He's been a good friend, and so I just want to say that it is worth following him if you don't already. So I just feel weird about doing a contest entry for any old channel just because I'm trying to win a prize. But no judgment if anyone watching this does tons of contest entries trying to win prizes, because prizes are cool. And Reggie's Prize is definitely cool. He's giving cash prizes, which I don't know that I've seen anyone do that before in this the comic YouTube community. Usually it's books, which makes sense because we all love books. Also, I'm wearing a tank top in honor of Reggie. I can't quite pull it off. I don't have the shoulders that he has, but figured I'd do it for Reggie. The other thing I want to say up front is that I am trying to do this video without any edits because I want to keep it as honest as possible for the question he posed, and I don't want to cut it up to make it seem like I'm perfecting my thoughts, which, and it's not a contest per se, so he's not like judging these, but his question that he asked is, why do you collect? And that's a complicated question for a lot of people. I don't think it's so simple as, oh, I just like to read, or I like the art. It may be, but I think when I took a few days to think about this, because I didn't want to just jump in and start rambling, which is clearly what I'm doing. So the few days didn't help, but a big part of it, and I've talked about this before, is I really like the excitement of the hunt and finding the books that you've been looking for and all that. But really, what it comes down to is the enjoyment of the collection and the enjoyment of the possession, which is funny because when I always want to do research for some reason before I do my videos, and I want to know more about what I'm saying to make sure that I'm providing accurate information. So I Googled, something to the effect of like, why do we love having things? And almost every result I came up with was, oh, you shouldn't have material possessions, that they're bad, and they're this and they're that, and they're a sign of loneliness, and they're something that holds you back. And I hesitate to go against psychologists who have degrees and have done studies, but I'm going to anyway because for me, I don't want to say possessions define us because it's not really accurate, but they are part of us. And, they do mean something to me. And especially specific books. I can look through my collection and see, a history and memories. And there's this joke in High Fidelity, the movie, which, watching it back, like many movies, is much more misogynistic than I remember. But be that as it may, it still has a funny line in it where the main character is organizing his record collection, and one of his friends come in and he's like, "Oh, you're not doing this alphabetically. How are you doing this?" And he says, "I'm doing it autobiographically." And I could almost do that with my collection. I wouldn't, because that's something a crazy person would do. No judgment if you organize your collection autobiographically. But it is something that I could look through my collection and say, "Oh, I bought this book then, and this is when this book came out, and I remember being at this shop to buy this book." And I really think that, there's a certain comfort in knowing I have certain books for some reason. When I come home from work, I am most excited to see my wife, obviously, and my pets. But, I also like to just come in here and peek at my collection, usually daily, because it is a de-stressor. It is a comfort. It's an anchor. And it is something that, like I said, is part of my identity now. I've certainly purged my collection a few times, and if you've watched the video with myself and my wife, she talks about how she doesn't collect things and she doesn't like possessions as much, and she lives by this, or tries to live by this, Kumari Method, which is from a book called The Life-Changing Art of Tidying Up. And one of the ideals of that is to get rid of the things that don't bring you joy, which makes sense. It says if you look at something and you're keeping it out of guilt, or you're keeping it out of, because you feel the need to not get rid of it, when you look at that, that's, it's not giving you a positive result. It's not, when you look at it, it's not bringing you any happiness. So I've taken that to heart with my collection, and not so much, like, I don't have books that I keep out of guilt, but I have books that I keep because I'm like, oh, I don't want to get rid of my full run of this, or I don't want to get rid of my full run of that, or this book is supposed to be something that is a good book to own, or whatever. And I've gone through my collection a few times and just said, I don't care about issues 18 through 50, or whatever 2 through 100 of some series where it's just dollar books, or a book that I've bought that went up in value, and that's why I'm keeping it, but I didn't really like the book that much. And I certainly understand the desire to be a completionist, so it has been hard to get rid of runs, because I know that's what a lot of people collect for, and that's makes sense to me. I still get it, but I've tried to pare down my collection to the books that are most important, so that when I flip through my collection, every book that I look at brings me some sort of joy or some sort of satisfaction. So I hope that all made sense. Not sure that it did, but the short answer is that I just love having a collection, and it brings me joy to have it. And adding to that collection adds to that joy. So I hope that clarifies if it didn't make sense before. Well, I hope on a rewatch that I'll listen to it and say, oh, okay, sure. I wasn't as off track as I thought. The last thing I want to say before I leave, and this isn't to sound noble or anything like that. If I do win, I want to put this out there so I hold myself accountable more than anything. I plan on donating the money to the CBLDF, which is the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, or another comic book charity, if I can find one that my employer will match, because my employer does match charitable donations to certain charities. So if I can find a different comic book charity that they match and they don't match the Legal Defense Fund, sorry, CBLDF, I'll have to go with another one just to feel like I'm getting value out of it. And the reason I want to do this is because I've talked about this on my channel, and Reggie's talked about this on his channel, which is giving back to the community. And I don't see a better way to be able to give back to the community than literally give back to the community. And I think the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund is a great cause who fight for fight against censorship, fight against things that would prevent a lot of the comics that we love from being able to be published. So I encourage you to check them out. They put out cool stuff as well. So, like I said, I just want to hold myself accountable. So if I do it and I get the money, I'm not like, ooh, well, I didn't tell anybody, so I can just spend it on a book. But again, if you win, I encourage you to spend it on a book, because that's what I would really like to do. But I want to try to live by my own words and give back to the community in different ways. And speaking of which, I am planning a community project, which the details of I will share soon. I'm still trying to iron out the exact details of how it's going to work, but pretty excited about it, and it should be pretty cool. So I think that about wraps it up. I've rambled for 15 minutes, which is far too long for this, but be that as it may, I appreciate you watching. I encourage you to sub up to Regie Simmons, and hope you have a great day. Thanks for watching. Never turn your back to the ocean.